Well, today I'm going to be making this cupboard, and I'm not going to reveal a lot about it because you're going to get to see that in the build today, but there's some really neat things going on. So let's jump in. Okay, so let's get started. And what I'm using today is this. I like this stuff because it's quick and easy. It's just pine. It's laminated together pine. I'm not, like a lot of these builds that I'm making, I'm not going to show you all the cutting because it's just simple cutting on the table saw and the miter saw. So when we get back here, we'll actually start doing some of the joinery and some of the dry fitting. So let me jump right in here. Oh, before I go away, I also want to tell you I've got a really neat idea for the doors for this. So you're going to want to stick around and see what that's all about too. So anyway, let me get cutting on this. Okay, I've just taken a moment to cut the carcass of the cabinet. I've marked the faces of all of my pieces. These are going to be the ends like this. This will be the upper shelf. This will be the other gable end. You can see there's somewhere on here, there's some blue tape. There it is there. So that's the face side of that. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my doweling jig for this. There's all sorts of things you could do. You could use some rabbeting. You could glue these together. You could use pocket holes. I'm using dowels because I want something stronger than pocket holes. So okay, I just want to give you a perspective on what I'm doing here and where the holes are. Now I've already drilled that first hole, so I aligned the jig, drilled that first hole. Now I'm using this locating pin and I'm going to locate that in there so that I get an exact hole. So I'm doing the second hole here, then I'm doing a 4, 4, and then the last one is a 2. And to give you perspective on that, so there's the first 2, then 4, 4, 4, and then the last one is another 2. And when that sits on there like that, that will sit on there perfectly. So we'll show you that in a moment. Okay, I'm going to take a moment now and just do a bit of a dry fit here. All right, now the next thing I need to do, and the reason that I have only done part of this right now is because I need to cut a dado all the way around because I want the back to slide in, because this is going to be what we call a French cleat. Let me show you what that's going to look like. So this cabinet is going to be held up by what's called a French cleat. And basically what it is, we have 2 pieces of wood. And if you look carefully, you'll see that there's an angle on those 2. And the first one fits inside of the cabinet like this. And that 45-degree angle is shooting out like that. The other one is mounted to the wall. And it will sit on the outside of the wall like this. So when you lift the cabinet into its place, this one will be sitting right about here. And then as you move the cabinet back to the wall, it sort of grabs onto that because there's one sort of fits into the other one. Okay, now I'm preparing to cut this dado, and the reason I left it this long is because the face side is, I always work from the face side, and that way you don't make any mistakes. Well, lessens the number of mistakes anyway. So I'm going to cut this dado all the way along here from the face side, and I needed to put this cleat in, and I've already put some dowels in there, and I wanted to position it, and it's the right flush with that is 11¼ inches. So I'm going to set I've already put the blade in the table saw, and I'm going to set that side at 11¼ inch, and I'm going to run a little scrap piece of test wood to make sure that it's right, and then I'll be able to run all of these all at the same time. I'll just disassemble this and run that all through. Okay, let me show you how I figured out what size. I'm ready to cut this backing material, and let me show you how I figured out exactly what sizes I need. I've actually just cut a couple of little strips. They happen to be 5 inches long each. I put a 5-inch in that side, one in that side, and now all I have to do is measure between the two of them, and in this case it happens to be 19 inches. Okay, there we go. That was a little bit of a struggle putting the top on, but everything's come together. I should check for squareness. We may have to adjust that a little bit because we're going to have doors to go on here. Oh. Yeah, that's just about perfect. Yeah, no, that's perfect. All right. Okay, so I've taken a moment to cut the stiles. So that basically they're going to look like this. The doors, of course, the cabinet's laying on its back still, so the rails are going, or the stiles are going to look like that. And of course the doors will open like so. Now the reason they're laying like this is I've already worked out what they want to be, what the distance between the two stiles needs to be. Okay, so here's a little bit of a dry fit, and you can see that it fits from side to side. So all the components are the right length and the right width. Now I just need to move the cabinet off of here so that I've got room to work on the doors here. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be using dowels to do this because I really want a strong, accurate door here. And when you're using a dowelmax, typically we just line up with our thumb on here, and that's plenty accurate for almost everything. But there's one thing when you're doing doors, especially the ones that I'm doing, I found out if you watched the dowelmax video, the last one, he showed a little trick, and that is to put the positioning pin in the first hole and then use that to position the dowel so that you, or the dowelmax, in the wood so that you get precision drilling. So I've done that, and you can see that those holes are absolutely perfect in there. So I'm going to use this little trick on these doors for all of this positioning, and that way this will be absolutely perfect lined up there and on there. So it's just a great little tip, so might be something you want to try sometime. Okay, and of course I use the colored dowels because they're slightly, I made them a little bit slightly undersized so that it's not such a struggle to put them in because it is such a tight fit. Wow, look at that. That's such a great tip. That works so well. And you know, when you're doing a dry fit with dowels, ideally I like to put a dowel into every hole and to make sure that everything is seated properly. That's the best way, because the last thing you want is when you're doing a glue up and you find out that there's a little bit of wood or chips got into one of the holes that you didn't realize, and now you're a little bit oversized on one of those holes that you might have drilled. So yeah, that's perfect. That is so excellent. Look at that. Look at it, just unbelievably perfect there. That's great. All right, that's a super strong door, and I'm going to put a... Okay, so let me catch you up to speed here. So the doors are square and dry and hard, ready to work with. I have this first one here face down. You can see the face side. I have it face down. What I'm going to do is to carve a rabbet all the way around the which is going to be the inside, and I'm going to use that to inset the panel that's going to go in here. So I'm just going to start this and show you sort of the process of this. I'm not going to do both of them. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. The router is already set up, ready to go. So we'll do a bit of a close-up here. You'll be able to see what that rabbet looks like. And then when we come back, we'll be working on the inset, which is the whole point of this build. Okay, that turned out to be a little dustier than I expected. But now you can see I've got these sort of concaves in here from the router bit. So what I'm going to do, just going to take a moment and take my multi-tool and just cut that so that it's square, because it'll be easier to work with it square. So I'll just do that off camera. That'll just take a few minutes. Well, now comes my favorite part of this build, and that is the inserts for the doors. And my plan for the inserts for the doors, a few years ago, I collected from somebody who was getting rid of an old fence, and I happened to be driving by and I saw these beautiful boards that they were giving away. Look at these weathered boards, beautiful weathered boards, and where I live they often use cedar for these, and this is in fact cedar. And this is kind of a scrap piece that I have, but I'm going to start off with this, and you can see there's a little bit of damage here and there. So what I'm going to have to do is cut this and glue it together so that I get a wide enough piece for a panel. And I have a few more boards out that I'm going to bring out, and I'm just going to start cutting this up and fitting this into the back of this panel to see what this is going to look like. This is what I've been waiting to do for quite some time. So let me get started here. Well, it's just been a lot of work to this point, cutting up these boards. This is the first look that I've had at this idea that I wanted to try and see what it looks like. And I've incorporated a knot and some holes for nails, and they're a little bit rusty. And the main reason I wanted to look at this, I wanted to look and see if I wanted to actually glue. These are two boards here, obviously, and I don't know if I want to glue them together or just sort of let them float. Now, I don't normally talk about sanding, but since I got this 3M sander and started using this 3M extract, these sort of net sanding discs, it's just absolutely changed my life in finishing because it is so fast and so efficient. This stuff, I actually start now with 120. I don't even start, I often used to start with 80. Now I start with 120. It's very fast, very efficient, and I finish up with 180, so I only use 2 pads on almost everything I do. And the reason I only go to 180 is the manufacturer of the finish that I use, Osmo, they actually recommend more like 150, but I found that 180 actually works perfect for what I'm doing. So I only need 2 grits, and I finish everything quickly, and it is such a dust-free environment. I don't have to sand outside anymore, especially in the winter when it's cold. Now, because I can connect this to my dust collector, and literally I've been sanding here for 5 minutes or something, there isn't any dust in the air. Just amazing system. Anyway, I'm going to finish this up and then we'll put some Osmo on here. Okay, for any of you who have been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I am a big believer in these hard wax oils, and the one that I prefer, something called Osmo, and basically you just wipe it on a very, very thin coat, very thin. I can't emphasize that enough. And you just let it sit. It dries overnight. You hit it with a 600 grit sandpaper the next day, wet dry sandpaper, just barely touch it, and then give it a top coat, and it is the most remarkable finish you'll ever use. It's not a gloss. You can get a gloss. I use a luster because I don't want the shine. I don't want to have a shiny finish on it because then you can't see the wood. You're always looking at the reflection of the high gloss. So that's why I use a luster. Well, you can see that I've trimmed these panels down. I've glued them together. I was going to make some little wooden clips, but I found some little plastic mirror clips, mirror attaching clips that I'm going to use instead. And the reason I'm doing that is at some point in the future, if I want to put a different panel in here to see what the look of it looks like, I'll easily be able to do that just by removing these clips. In fact, you can even just turn them like that and they will move out like that. So I'm going to do that. I'm also going to install the hardware, and I'm using this Euro hardware, special hardware that I bought just for these doors. So you'll see that in a moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and install all of this. Nothing much to see. Okay, so that's my weekend project done. I have the doors on, and now for the, we'll call it the unveiling. And that's why I selected that hardware, as I can touch these and I know they're going to close behind me and I don't have to put catches on and everything's working. I have to say, I love the look of this. This is old fence panels, old fence boards that have been living outside. I haven't finished them. They've been living outside for probably 20 years in the rain and the snow and the wind and the sunshine, and they're just naturally aged, so I'm not even going to touch them. They are what they are. And there is a hole there, and that was done on purpose. I don't know whether to block that hole on the other side or just leave it the way it is. You can make a comment in the section below and tell me what you think we should do with the knot hole. Should we cover it from the back or just leave it alone? Anyway, I'm going to give you a before and after. So this is the after this, but I'm going to show you the other cupboard and why I went with white and why I'm not going to be finishing any of the inside. So we'll show you a before and after right now. Okay, so here's the old cupboard, and I don't even have any door latches on this one or door handles on this one. And it was just this was a cupboard that I salvaged from somewhere else. And one of my main gripes with this is this bar in here, which it's always annoying. So that's one of the main reasons I wanted to replace this, was so I didn't have to have this bar up in here, because this is made out of MDF. And as I said, it was an old salvage one when I first set up the shop. So this is coming off the wall. That's the before. And after I take all the stuff out of here and put it in the new one, we'll do an after. Okay, and there's the difference. You can see how much light there is in there now. You can actually see what's in there now. And when I'm finished with the cabinet, I usually only have to open one door at a time. Now I can just close them and walk away. I don't have to worry about standing around waiting for them to close or attaching latches or anything. It's all done. Well, that concludes my video today, and you know what? I am super happy with the way these cupboards turn out, and the whole experiment with the doors and the barn wood, which is just an old fence from someplace that I got some boards from, all of that has turned out just perfectly. I'm thrilled, and I can find stuff in my cupboard now. It's just all good. During the video, I mentioned about the sandpaper that I use, which is now the 3M extract, and I did a video on that. In fact, a couple of videos on that. You'll be able to check that out here. If you have sanding issues, this might be what you want to have a look at. I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.